The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Senator Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Senator Gardner,
Excused.
Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Henriksen,
Excused.
Hawkes Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundin, Marchman. Michelson Janae. Malika.
Excused.
Pelton B. Pelton R. Priola. Rich. Roberts. Rodriguez. Simpson.
Excused.
Smallwood. Sullivan. Van Winkle. Will. Winter. Zenzinger. Senator Gardner. Senator Gardner. Mr. President.
Here. The morning roll call is 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Buckner, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Good morning. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Uh-oh. Approval of the journal.
Hello, Mr.
Senator Liston.
President. Mr. President, I move that the Senate Journal of February the 16th, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary and ask respectfully for an aye vote. I'll work on it. I'll work on it. It wasn't. And I ask for an aye vote, Mr. President.
Senator Liston, we expected much more from you.
I will.
This
It
is
was
a
long weekend. Get ready.
Luckily, it's a short week also. You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
The ayes have it, and that motion is adopted. Please try harder next time, Senator Liston. Senate Services.
February 2024, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 22, Senate Joint Resolution 8, correctly re-engrossed Senate Bill 99.
Committee reports.
February 14, 2024, Mr. President, the Committee on Education has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Member of the Board of Trustees of the Colorado School of Mines, effective January 1, 2024, for a term expiring December 31, 2027. Michael Kors of Evergreen, Colorado, to serve as an alumnus of the school, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to proceed out of order to take up personal privilege.
You have heard the motion to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it, and the Senate will now proceed out of order. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Good morning, members. Please join me in welcoming the members of the Emergency Medical Services Association of Colorado. Please stand. Also known as EMSAC. The Emergency Medical Services Association of Colorado is a nonprofit society of emergency medical service professionals. Founded as the EMT Association of Colorado in 1973, it is one of the oldest state EMS organizations in the nation. EMSAC is dedicated to furthering the highest quality of emergency medical services in the state of Colorado by assisting EMS providers to realize their potential through innovative, lifelong learning, goal-driven advocacy and promotion of EMS professionalism.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President. Yes, I would ask for a moment of personal privilege as well.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Did you say this one?
No.
Okay. Members, the association speaks with a unified voice to assure that the best care for victims of trauma and those suffering from medical emergencies. I hope you will join Senator Zinzinger and I. We want to invite you to a reception where all of the EMS professionals will be at the University Club tonight from 5 to 7. You're invited for this reception. Please join me in welcoming these heroes to the chamber today.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the MSAC members include the EMS chiefs, the paramedics, the emergency medical technicians, the private ambulance companies, and the public EMS districts. These men and women, and not all of them are even here right now, I think some might be outside or in the other chamber. These men and women are the people who actually save your lives when you're splattered on the highway or your loved ones are out there. So let's give another round of applause to these heroes and dedicated professionals. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, members. Members, are you doing that? Senator Fields.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues. I just want to add to the acknowledgement and the recognition of EMS providers that are here today. I just want you to know that our community and our state really appreciate your service. Because whenever we call, someone shows up. It could be the fire department, it could be the police department, but sometimes it's about the emergency medical assistance and service that someone needs. And I just can only think about my own personal experience. I called 911 because I was describing a medical emergency that my mom was experiencing. And you all showed up, and you all provided the life-saving measures that she needed. And it wasn't just for my families, but when I think about what you do for the state of Colorado as it relates to providing that medical assistance to people who are struggling with symptoms that they don't understand, I appreciate your service and your timeliness as it relates to that medical crisis that people are experiencing. So thank you so very much. I appreciate your service and your commitment to the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to add to all of this. You know, we go through our lives managing things best we can with visiting our doctor, managing our own health care, making sure our insurance is in place, our HSAs and so on. But when that sudden thing happens, when the medical emergency happens, the thing we did not see coming, when we get in that wreck, when we have that chest pain or that accident, we need a hero to show up. These people are our heroes. We just pick up and dial 3 numbers, and it magically, within minutes, the right people with the right equipment and the right skills show up. And it's amazing, and these are true professionals, and I've gotten to know some of them very well, dear friends, and just want to say how much we appreciate you for all your heroism in our lives. Thank you.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to close this out, I want to underscore their amazing partnership with the EMS Task Force over the last year and a half, where they have worked tirelessly to try and address some of the gaps that we have within our healthcare system, in particular around the EMS providers, making sure that no matter where you live in this state, when you pick up the phone or when an emergency is called for, that they're able to reach you. So I just want to underscore that point and say thank you very much for all of your service today, and hopefully you all can say hello to them as they wander through the Capitol. This is their day at the Capitol. And join us this evening for their reception. Thank you.
Members, first of all, thank you so much for the EMS folks for being here today. You are true heroes. We have another visitor here with us who I don't know if I would say raises to the hero level, but he's a pretty good guy. You may know him as Congressman Joe Neguse, who's visiting the state Senate. Joe, you're my hero, even if, you're not an EMS provider. I cannot wait, members, until Congressman Neguse next year has so much fun with Senator Gardner. I'm actually going to watch C-SPAN. Thank you, Congressman, for visiting the state Senate today. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. Today, I'm up here to introduce some members from the Colorado Nurses Association. If you would please stand. Today is the Colorado Nurses Association Nurses Day at the Capitol. Our resident nurse is in committee, so I'm taking the mantle here to acknowledge the Nurses Association. The Nurses Association is the professional organization representing all of Colorado's registered nurses. Their mission is to strong together to advance the profession of nursing to improve health for all. And one of their main strategic themes is to advance the role of nurses to enhance safety, quality, and access to care. So I'd like to show our appreciation for being here, and thank you for coming to our Capitol today.
Members, we are still waiting on the CDC committee to finish up their work and join us. So the Senate will stand in recess to briefly greet all of our guests that are here with us this morning. The Senate will come to order. Third reading of bills. Final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 22?
Senate Bill 22, Senator Malika and Representatives Brown and Velasco, concerning an expansion of the ability of a Board of County Commissioners to regulate tobacco products.
Will the clerk please add Senator Malika, Senator Henriksen, for now, just Senator Malika and Henriksen to the roll. Thank you. Senator Malika.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 22 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was not here for the second reading, so I wanted to make a comment or two. Although I would ask someone to take a quick grab of my American flag and Colorado flag there that I knocked off my desk. Thank you, Minority Leader. Members, when I was a small child growing up in the state of Texas, don't tell anybody, but I'm a native Texan, my adult relatives, not only my parents, but aunts and uncles, all my extended family, periodically would drive to the other side of the county. And when you got there, you'd see a liquor store at a crossroads. And if you went the other way, you'd see a liquor store at the crossroads. And if you went down the other way, you'd see a liquor store at the crossroads. And being a curious young lad, when I got to be 11 or 12 or something, I said, how come all the liquor stores are out there? And my parents, my aunts and uncles said, well, because we live in a dry, we actually had a dry precinct. Now, a precinct in Texas was not like a precinct here. Precinct was quite large, so the county had 4 of them. And it was dry down to the very local level of precinct. And so my particular locality, city, and the surrounding precinct was dry. And so there was a liquor store on that corner and a liquor store on that corner and a liquor store on that counter, because the other precinct neighboring, well, those people, they had a wet precinct, and so you could buy liquor over there. What's the point of this story talking about liquor? It's about prohibition of things and prohibition of things on a local level. So what happened on seconds is that this was amended to regulate and that reads, regulate the possession, and giving county governments, regulate the possession or sale of cigarettes, tobacco products, or nicotine products to a minor consistent with Section 1813, 121.3. Another major operative provision on page 2 at lines 15 through 18, prohibit the retail sale of any or all cigarettes, tobacco products, nicotine products, including prohibiting the sale of any or all flavored cigarettes, flavored tobacco products, or flavored nicotine products. Colleagues, I've never been a smoker. Won't say I haven't smoked an occasional cigar, and that I didn't sneak some cigarettes maybe when I was preteen, but I've never been a smoker. I think it's bad for you. But a lot of things are bad for you. Gambling's bad for you. Alcohol's bad for you. in excessive quantities. Well, anyway, a lot of things are bad for you, but they're legal. Cannabis is bad for you, but we've legalized it, and tobacco is the same. This bill, and I appreciate the sponsor's concern about nicotine products, but extending what is, in my mind, truly a matter of statewide concern to the local level is just going to create this situation of a set of county commissioners deciding that we're going to be a tobacco-free county. And as I read this, actually, it may not be intended to be this way, but I think you could read lines 7 through 9 to say that the county could ban the possession of cigarettes, tobacco products, or nicotine products. Now, you may say, well, that's only to minors, but reread that a couple of times and ask yourself what that's intended to say, because I think a county, a board of county commissioners could say, we have the right to regulate the possession, and regulating means the ability to prohibit. And so some clean air county, some 3 commissioners somewhere, might do that. And I'll tell you where the best tobacco stores with the best selection will be. They'll be at every county line around that county. And if they regulate the possession in some way that I think their voters might just be up in arms about, but if they did, then you'd have a black market in it. Even in the state-to-state possession and trade in cigarettes, in the eastern states where distances are closer, you have people crossing state lines to pay less in taxation. We'll leave that to matters of federalism and so forth. But this idea in Senate Bill 22 that we're going to regulate this on the county level is just bad policy in my mind. Even though, again, I don't approve of the nicotine products. I think they're bad for you. But if we're going to do that, it needs to be done on a statewide level, or else you just create trafficking. You just create black marketing. You just create stores that set up across, and, I could even, if I were so inclined, I could make a case for how that adds to the air pollution because people are driving 10 miles that they wouldn't have to drive already to get their cigarettes. I really urge a no vote on this, members, because it is well-intended but wrong-headed. Thank you.
Senator Zindiger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the reason why I am coming down and speaking on this bill is that initially I was opposed to this bill. The way that it was prior to the amendments, I just couldn't support it. And that's consistent with my votes in the past. Anything that would attempt to just outright ban would not, in my mind, be able to garner support. However, there were a significant number of amendments that were done to the bill. I think it ended up in a place where I could support it, mostly because I think this is just clarifying what I believe is already settled law. I believe that most counties already believe that they have this authority. There were just a few that felt that it was ambiguous or that they did not have the clarity that other counties felt that they had. So by the very fact that it is not banning anything, and it is clearing up any kind of ambiguity that may be out there outstanding for some of our local governments. I think it is landed in a good place, and I'll be supporting the bill today. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 22. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle. Oh, and apologies, but will the clerk now add Senator Simpson to the roll? We tried earlier. Okay, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 22. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Gardner, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson, Hinrichsen, Sullivan. With a vote of 21 ayes, 14 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 22 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Priola, General order, second reading of bills. Consent calendar. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
I know. The committee will come to order and the coat rule is abolished for the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to the bill on the consent calendar? No, Majority Leader. Oh, yeah. Yep, read the title.
Senate Bill 128 by Senators Hinrichsen and Pelton B. Representatives Bradley and McLaughlin concerning the repeal of an obsolete provision that required the Department of Transportation to make recommendations to the General Assembly by 2011.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Senate Resolution 001 lay over till Thursday, February 22nd.
We're not.
Wrong bill. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the bill on second reading consent calendar be passed, Senate Bill 128, and there are no committee reports.
Excellent. Is there any discussion on the bill on the consent calendar? Seeing no discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of the bill on the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will adopt Senate Bill 128. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will rise and report. No, we don't.
Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met, abolished a coat rule, and considered a bill. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the report?
February 20th, 2024, Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report. It has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 128, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of said report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 128 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of the general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
Have fun. Committee will come to order, and the coat rule is not abolished but relaxed. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to SCR 001?
SCR 001 by Senators Danielson and Fields, Representatives Duran and Weissman, submitting to the registered electors of the state of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution concerning allowing Colorado lawmakers to pass laws that permit victims of childhood sexual abuse to bring a civil claim for the sexual abuse regardless of when the sexual abuse occurred.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the correct second reading, I move SCR 001 lay over till Thursday, February 22nd.
That is a proper motion. Is there any, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and SCR 001 will lay over until Thursday, February the 22nd. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 24-066?
Senate Bill 66 by Senator Sullivan and Representative Froelich concerning a requirement that certain businesses with relationships with firearms merchants use the appropriate merchant category code.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 66 and the Business and Labor and Technology Report.
To the committee report, Senator Sullivan.
Yes, Madam Chair, we had a couple of amendments there. They were technical amendments. One of them cleared up or included credit unions as part of it, and I asked for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the BLT committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the BLT committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today we have in front of you Senate Bill 24-066 concerning a requirement for certain merchant category codes. I thought I would go through our committee that we had going on 2 weeks ago now and kind of go through that and then bring up some of the points that we brought up during that committee and then be ready to answer any questions pertaining to this. The committee report, the committee that we were in was quite interesting. I'll tell you, the victimization of law-abiding gun owners was something that really came up. Has absolutely nothing to do with this bill. There is no way that this kind of legislation will have anything to do with creating registries or getting us on some kind of a slippery slope to finding out who and where people have their firearms. It's incapable of doing that. The second thing that we heard was that implementation of merchant category codes now being used across the country for all other kinds of businesses, that now they're going to finally include the gun industry, was somehow going to cause these small businesses undue harm and put them out of business. Again, nothing is farther from the truth on that kind of stuff. They will still be doing the businesses that they have been doing all of this time. There are clearly guidelines set up as to who will have to have a merchant category code and who will not, and what types of business and how much the dollar amount is of the business that we're doing. I mean, Bob's Bait and Tackle that sells, that has a rack full of ammunition and sells that, doesn't all of a sudden become a firearm dealer and have to get themselves a merchant category code. Finally, it was interesting to listen to people trying to come up with scenarios as to how this was going to be implemented and whether this was something that we needed here in the state of Colorado or not. This scenario has already played itself out, ladies and gentlemen. It played itself out on July 20th, 2012, when my son's killer amassed, and I'll go through some of the data that they have here. What we heard in the trial was he spent over $36,000 amassing firearms, ammunition, body armor, and also apparently, all of his targets, all of the manipulations that he did to try to turn his apartment into a bomb, and littered the inside of his apartment with napalm. He got this all from going on the internet and finding out how to make his own napalm. He bought those little pine little things that hang from your rear view mirror, because he bought gallons and gallons of gasoline and stored them in little jars with all of this ammunition that he had bought, so that all of this stuff would all blow up and cause a fire and cause everybody to run to the apartment at 1960 Paris Street rather than go to the movie theater. And I know that, and I've heard this now for 6 years that I've been down here as an elected. For the 11 years that I've been walking through and trying to talk to people like yourselves and testifying in bills like this, that there's nothing that you're doing that is making a difference in this. That this is all just the way it's going to be. That nothing that you're saying or doing would have stopped what happened that day. I mean, you even are having people down here reading quotes that I have been quoted from in the hundreds of interviews that I've done the last 11 years pertaining to this issue. I know there's a senator who's already getting himself ready to come down here and talk on this subject. And so I'll read another quote for you, maybe from one of the people that you all look to. It's law enforcement officials seeking to identify individuals who are potentially stockpiling weapons could also benefit from this new information. In the aftermath of the 2012 mass shooting in Aurora, Colorado, which killed 12 people and injured an additional 70, District Attorney George Brockler, let me repeat that name, District Attorney George Brockler stated, "I do wish someone from law enforcement had been able to go to the shooter's door and knock on his door and figure out a way to talk their way into or to freak him out. Yeah, absolutely, he finished. Now, this is what he said in 2015. He's been known to change his mind on a lot of things here over the years. You can call his radio show and see what he thinks about this right now. But that's what he was saying in 2015. And this stuff played itself out completely leading up to that. Alex's killer used a MasterCard issued by USAA. And as we heard during the trial, this was a platinum credit card, okay? This had no credit limit to it at all. This guy could continue to buy all he wanted, and no one cared. No one kept track of that. And all he did was maneuver that money and those payments from his bank account to his PayPal account and maneuver that stuff all around. He purchased $11,000 worth of weapons and military gear in the 6-week period between May 22nd, 2012 and July 6th, 2012. He had never made another purchase on firearms or anything relating to this industry before in his life. During a 6-week period, he bought 2 tear gas grenades, a gas mask and a filter, a .40 caliber Glock handgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, and the Smith & Wesson MP15 Sport that he used to murder my son. He bought a 100-round magazine, 2 40-round magazines, a laser sight, a bulletproof vest. Now, he also bought complete body armor. So he was completely protected from head to toe. He had a helmet on and complete body armor. Unclear to me what anybody in our communities need body armor for. But apparently this stuff is available, and you can use your platinum credit cards to buy as much of this as you want. He bought 5,000 rounds of ammunition, 2 sets of handcuffs. Do you know that the plan was to go to the back of the theater and handcuff those doors so that the 400 moviegoers couldn't get out? That was his plan. And he bought Roadstars. Roadstars. So he bought these and had them in his car because he was thinking when he was getting away, he was going to be able to throw these out the window and cause people's tires to blow up, and they wouldn't have been able to follow him. We actually had somebody in the trial come in to defend that. They defended it by claiming that these are a valid thing for us to have as citizens because the Romans used this. They actually talked about Romans during our trial in 2015. They said they would take these Roadstars and encircle their encampment so that people wouldn't be able to get in. They would step on these Roadstars and, I guess, yell out, ow, really loud, and the Romans would be, engorged and ready to, to fight these people. He made 3 purchases online and in person, including at Gardner Mountain Gun Store and the Bass Pro Shops. Bass Pro Shops is one of the top 10 sellers of illegal firearms or firearms that are being used in criminal intent. Bass Pro Shops is one of the worst. The Gardner Mountain one, we sat there and watched that during the trial. We watched my son's killer in the store, handing his credit card over to the attendant, checking out the gun, seeing how it worked, pointing it around the store. We all watched that. And these are all the guns that he used during that 6-week period between May 22nd, 2012, and July 6th, 2012. And there's others of this. We can go, Omar Martin used credit cards from his MasterCard, American Express, and Visa to purchase $20,000 worth of guns and ammunition. 12 days before the Orlando shooting, he began a $26,532 buying spree. He bought a Sig Sauer MCX .223 caliber rifle and a Glock 17.9 millimeter semi-automatic pistol, several large magazines, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and a $7,500 ring for his wife, because he knew he wasn't coming back, so he got her something. His average spending before this, and he only used one card, was $1,500 a month. He bought the rifle and the handguns legally at the St. Lucie Shooting Center 1 week before the attack. If I have to remind you what happened in the Pulse nightclub, that man killed 49 people and injured 50 more. This is what this is all about. This is giving our law enforcement another tool in what they can do to help stem the tide of gun violence in our country. They're already using category codes for numerous others. We're doing that for money laundering. They're doing that. You can't buy manure anymore unless you get checked out, because Timothy McVeigh loaded up a van and parked it out in front of the Murrow building and blew that up. So now everybody, if you're just a regular guy and you want to buy thousands of pounds of manure, someone's going to check you out. This is the same type of thing that we're looking for in this. They're doing it with money laundering. They're doing it with human trafficking. There are highways in the United States that human traffickers use to a great extent. And so what happens is they use the same hotels. They eat at the same restaurants or fast food places. They shop at the exact same women's clothing stores. Now, independently, staying in that hotel doesn't make you a human trafficker. No. And no one is saying that does. But in conjunction with these other activities, and then at the end of these activities, large amounts of money are being deposited into your savings accounts or some other activity place that you have of yours. That sets off an algorithm for law enforcement, and they have been able to stem the tide to get and make some advancement on human trafficking. That's what this is about, folks. To finally, after 40 plus years of using credit cards and the banking industry, to finally bring the gun industry into the fold of what everybody else has been doing. And this came from the international banking and credit card company. They passed this September of 2022. I know, reading all of those emails, you would have thought it was me. You thought I'm the one who came up with this idea, that I'm the one who's trying to make everything so hard on all of the people of Colorado. But no, this is a financial banking institution that has finally brought the gun industry in line with everybody else. And that's what we're starting to do. And this is just one step on that way. It's not going to solve everything. Okay? I mean, this was the other thing, we heard from people. Oh, well, they passed this in California. And this guy started screaming and reading off other mass shootings that had happened in California. I know just mentioning it puts fear into people, and you can perpetrate that fear into all of your communities. But the reality is that that bill in California doesn't take effect for another 2 years. This bill, when we pass it through here, won't take effect for a period of time. It's not going to stop mass shootings tomorrow, but it'll put us on our way to that. And with that, I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Is there further discussion on SB 24-066? Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, well, I sit on the Business Affairs, Labor and Technology Committee, and we did hear this. And first and foremost, I want to let my good colleague, the senator from Centennial, know that all of us deeply share in your grief of what happened to your son and the other victims back in July of 2012. We mourn along with you and your family, and want you to know first and foremost how deeply saddened we are for what happened to your son and to your family. You have all of our support, and I know that that won't bring your son back or anybody else. And we can certainly appreciate where you're trying to, what you're attempting to do. But members, we heard a lot of testimony from people on both sides of this issue. And you know, speaking for myself, and I'll just before I get into some of the questions and so forth, personally, this is just me. I feel that that the perpetrator of what happened to Senator Sullivan's son and the others, these mass shootings, whether it happened in Aurora or it happens in Las Vegas or wherever it happens, but certainly here in Colorado, this is just me, my opinion, making that perfectly clear. I think that the citizens of Colorado made a severe mistake when we did away with the death penalty. I personally believe that anybody that goes out and commits mass murder of 2 or more people deserves the death penalty. I won't get into the details of that, but I think, once again, speaking just for myself, that we have made a severe mistake by not having the death penalty. I think that that in itself would be a huge deterrent to these sick, heinous people that go out and commit mass murder. And when I say the death penalty, everybody should get their trial and maybe get one appeal, but after that, they deserve the death penalty. Enough about that. But a lot of questions came up during this hearing, and I don't fully understand. It's well-meaning what the senator from Centennial is trying to do, but these merchant category codes, as they're talked about, does it apply to all of the retailers? And the answer to that is no. They only apply to small specialized stores. Doesn't apply to the Cabela's of the world or the Shields or the Walmarts of the world. It will target, I shouldn't use that bad pun, it will go out after the mom and pop retailers that specialize maybe in firearms and so forth. And does it allow, does this bill, will it track the firearms or the ammunition sales? And the answer to that is no. It's just a merchant code. You can never see what is in the so-called shopping cart and so forth. So whether a person goes out and buys 3 or 5 firearms or whatever type of ammunition, this will not stop that. Can you use this code to stop a purchase? And the answer to that is no, unless you want to really clamp down on the ability of the merchant to use credit cards. What a lot of the witnesses and others of us believe is that what will ultimately happen to the specialized sporting goods stores is that the credit card companies themselves or the banks will ultimately say, you know, we don't want to do business with you anymore. So we're going to disallow you to run your credit card purchases through the Visas or the MasterCards or the Discover cards of the world. Or worse yet, or just as bad, is that the banks who have lent the mom and pop store owners money, they're going to call in their loans. They're going to say, you know, we just don't want to do business with you anymore because you a lot of your business is done in firearms related. So we're going to call in your loan, and that person maybe has a $50,000 or $100,000 loan, and we want the loan repaid within 30 days, whatever the terms of the agreement are. And also what this bill will not do, and it will force, or a lot of people will get wise to it, is they'll say, you know, I won't use my credit card to purchase a firearm anymore because I don't want to be tracked, or I don't want to be involved in this system, so I'm going to use cash. And they'll go in there and they'll use cash to purchase their particular firearms or ammunition and so forth. So once again, I appreciate what the good senator from Centennial is trying to do, but I just speaking for myself and others, I don't see how it's going to stop what you're trying to do. So with that, the other thing I guess I'll say is that the senators mentioned California has done this, and Colorado is now, California is the only state that has done this. Personally, I don't want to be like California. A lot of people, for a lot of reasons, this bill included. California does a lot of things that people in Colorado are getting wise to. We don't want to be like California, whether it's a bill like this or the numerous other onerous rules and regulations and mandates that California is doing that is driving people out of the state of California. But let me tell you, the states that have prohibited this type of transaction or this type of legislation, not in any particular order, but the state of Idaho, the state of Montana, the state of North Dakota, the state of Texas, the state of Mississippi, the state of West Virginia, the state of Florida, and I'm sure there are others that are about ready to, that are also looking at it, of prohibiting this type of legislation that includes New Jersey, Wisconsin, Utah, Georgia, and Kentucky, just to name a few. So I won't get into the legalities or the constitutional issues because maybe my other colleagues would like to address that. But however well-intended the good senator from Centennial is on this issue, I don't, speaking for myself and others, we don't see how this is going to stop these heinous people from doing these horrific things that they perpetrate on us, except, once again, I will say, is that if we had a mandatory death penalty for people who went out or thought about going out and murdering 2, 3, 5, 10 or more people and make it swift and execute them, I think that would cause a lot of people to think twice before they would entertain such terrible crimes as this. So with all due respect, members, I would respectfully ask for a no vote on this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Liston. Colleagues, I'm going to encourage us to, again, there was discussion of other policies. I invite all of the colleagues, as we entertain debate in regards to Senate Bill 66, to stick to Senate Bill 66. With that, Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to clear up one little thing in the good senator's presentation of the bill from Centennial, is that the biggest thing is that when he's talked about fertilizer, or when he talked about manure, what happened in Oklahoma City was ammonium nitrate. It was not manure. There's lots and lots and lots of places that buy lots of manure, and I just wanted to make sure that we just cleared that up a little bit. It's fertilizer that we use on our property to grow our crops, and it's also used in explosives in mining. So yes, he is correct in saying that if you buy large amounts of manure or large amounts of fertilizer, you will be checked and make sure, but it's not manure because we just clean that out of our fields and spread it on our ground. So thank you.
Appreciate that clarification. Further discussion in regards to Senate Bill 66. Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I want to echo what the good senator from Colorado Springs was saying earlier of our empathy in our heart for the root cause of what would bring this bill about. And if it were that straightforward and simple, we could solve the individual violence through measures such as this, then I don't see why we would not all just jump on board. But of course, there's a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is constitutional. We concern ourselves, we all do, with the violence that keeps cropping up. I think it has much to do with the devaluing of life, that I don't think that we've had the nerve as a body to step up to and to declare that life does have the value that it does actually have. But when we start out each assembly, we swear an oath of office, and that oath of office concerns itself with something, I'm going to suggest, even bigger than what's being addressed by this bill. Because this bill could save dozens, maybe hundreds of people from losing their lives with the alerting of large amounts of ammo being purchased. However, it could also alert that folks are standing up to defend themselves from an overbearing government that intends to harm the people. That has happened. That's not imagination. That has happened. And rather than saving dozens or hundreds of lives, we're talking about saving millions of lives. So when a government comes against its people with violence, the numbers of deaths are in the millions. And that is why we all take that oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States for that Second Amendment that keeps the militia intact, that militia being the people themselves who sometimes need to stand up and defend themselves from a violent, overbearing government. It has happened. There are many cases that we can call out, and that is why the Second Amendment was put in place by the founders. It's also why we should not support the bill. The bill would alert government, hey, this large amount of ammo is being purchased. So while it may help with law enforcement, it also has the effect of alerting a government that has ill intent that the people are intending to defend themselves. That's where we swear our oath of office. We do not swear the oath of office for anything other than that. So I understand there's a conflict, and again, I'm empathetic with the intent of this bill, but I'm afraid that it goes too far, and it's our obligation to vote no against this bill in order to uphold our oath of office. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion, Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues. So I do want to bring one piece of information to light about this bill, just because I do think that ultimately it's quite a bit more expansive than what we might be thinking. And many of you might remember we had a similar conversation, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before last, when we were talking about waiting periods for firearms, accessories, ability to transfer firearms, all those conversations we were having. Because, colleagues, if you look at this bill, and I'm looking at the introduced version still, we are not only including firearms and ammunitions, as the bill sponsor mentioned, but I think it's very important that we also look, because the bill clearly includes and redefines firearm accessories. So when you hear the term firearm accessories, I think if you're like a lot of folks, you immediately think about maybe a detachable magazine, let's say, or a stock, or something that is patently obvious as something that is attached onto a firearm. But if you look at the definition in the bill, and what we are now going to be defining as a firearm accessory to be, it is a device designed or adapted to be, and this is where it's very clear, inserted into or attached to, like a magazine, like stock, but the key word is, or used with a firearm. So, a firearm accessory, despite what many people think, will not be a device designed or adapted to be inserted into or attached to a firearm, but anything that is used with a firearm. So think about that. Anything used with a firearm that alters the firing capabilities of a firearm, the lethality of a firearm, or the shooter's ability to hold or use the firearm. So there's a lot there. There's a whole lot there. So, device that alters firing capabilities of a firearm, I don't really know that I have a problem with that necessarily. I think you can make a lot of arguments about what all that could be. But when we talk about something that is potentially improving the lethality of a firearm, the way I look at it, and the way I looked at it last time we had this conversation, it's pretty binary. Something, well, or trinary, because that's a word I just invented, right? Something either improves the lethality of a weapon, making it more accurate, potentially more deadly, or it weakens the lethality of a firearm, making it less operable, or maybe it does nothing. Maybe it's completely neutral, like painting it a different color or something like that. But when we talk about something that's designed to alter the lethality of a firearm, something that makes a weapon more accurate, potentially more deadly, think about what we're talking about here. We are probably talking about, inarguably, optics of some kind. So, a scope, for example. And people use scopes for hunting all the time. I remember when my kids got their first BB gun, just to go target shooting on it. What did it have? It had a scope on it. Okay? Little $20 scope or something along those lines. Colleagues, citizens of Colorado, that scope going forward would now be defined as a firearms accessory subject to all of the provisions of this law. And let me take a step back, because you may hear, at least we heard last time I had this conversation, that I'm really reaching here, right? Like we're reducing to the ridiculous. We're getting just so granular with it that this can't possibly be true. I would encourage everyone in this room and anyone listening, pick your favorite sporting goods store online. There's a million names out there. The first one that pops into your head, think of their name and go to their website on your phone right now. And they're going to have a section for firearms, and they're going to have a section for firearms accessories. The things I'm going to read off to you, I'm not inventing these. I'm not making these up. I looked at 3 websites. These are all on the websites. These are the things, sort of in order. Okay? So this isn't a reach. This isn't something that's ridiculous. Optics are clearly firearms accessories according to this law and according to the retailer's own websites. So we've now brought in optics. Something that would increase the lethality of a firearm would include a bipod, or a tripod, or a stick, for those of you who hunt. These are now, according to Senate Bill 66, firearms accessories, anyone that sells them, subject to the rules that this bill is creating. And I'm not saying that's wrong, maybe that's what you want, but just know that we are bringing optics, bipods, tripods into this. When we move on to page 3 and start looking at letter C, this is where it starts getting really tough. I think it gets really tough for maybe people who support even the general premise of this proposed legislation, is because a firearm accessory will now be defined as anything that improves the shooter's ability to hold or use a firearm. Hold or use is what the language of the law says. So to hold a firearm, to carry a firearm, clearly I would think means a holster or a sling or a strap, which for those of you who hunt probably don't want to carry a rifle around for several hours. I'm assuming you're going to use a sling or a strap. Those slings and straps are now defined as firearms accessories under Senate Bill 66. Anybody who sells a sling is going to be subject to these laws. For me, when I shoot, I use hearing protection and eye protection. I use special sunglasses made by Oakley. You're welcome, Oakley. So Oakley glasses are something that I feel is necessary to, quote, use the firearm. And colleagues, anything that would improve a shooter's ability to use a firearm will be a firearm accessory under this bill. So if you sell shooting glasses, if you sell any sort of eye protection, you are selling firearm accessories. If you sell hearing protection, what could hearing protection be? Some of it, I think, could be pretty specific. Something that says X brand hunting protection, X brand shooting ear protection. Senators, what about earplugs? What about garden variety earplugs? I have a lot of friends that hunt using regular foam earplugs. So are those now firearm accessories in our state? Is a merchant who's selling foam earplugs and not abiding by the provisions within Senate Bill 66 now breaking the law in our state? I would say clearly yes. Because again, if it changes the shooter's ability to hold or use a firearm, anything used with a firearm that improves the shooter's ability to use the firearm is a firearm accessory. I do not think, and I wasn't in committee, let me confess that first of all. Maybe this already came up in committee. Maybe this was already addressed in committee, and there were good reasons why we wanted to make sure sunglasses and foam earplugs and holsters and straps were all included and looped in this legislation. But in the event that it wasn't, or colleagues, if you agree with me, that even if you like the bill and you want to support the bill and you want to vote yes on the bill, that this probably is a bit of an overreach. So, in my very pedestrian attempt to rescue us, I have an amendment.
There's an amendment. There's an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L004 to Senate Bill 066?
L004, amend printed bill,
Senator
page 3.
Smallwood,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 4.
to the amendment.
This will be the easiest amendment probably that I ever introduce in this body. All we're doing is hopefully keeping the bill as intact as the proponents would want, leaving everything related to firearms in the bill, but removing firearm accessories from the bill. So we now get to take out hearing protection and glasses and straps and everything that any hunter or recreational shooter would want to have and needs to have to use with a firearm and is used to hold or use the firearm. Gloves, all the optics. Now, if we want to keep those things in here, then I missed that part of the discussion, and we can keep it in there, maybe narrowing the definition of firearms accessories to include something else that you want in. But colleagues, I would assume that none of us really want merchants to have to track foam earplugs and sunglasses and safety glasses the way they would under this pre-amended version of Senate Bill 66, and I'd ask for an aye vote on Amendment 4.
Further discussion on L004 to Senate Bill 66. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would ask for a no vote on this unfriendly amendment. Again, he talks about having all of these conversations pertaining to gun violence here in the state and how he's talked to all of these people. This is the only place that these senators talked at me on this subject matter. Not a single one of them in, again, 11 years of being here, 6 years here as being an elected here on these floors. None of them have ever talked to me about any of this type of stuff. And I'm, quite frankly, I don't know of any ear foam protection specialty stores here in the greater Denver or metropolitan or the state of Colorado. There are clear definitions as to how much you have to sell within your store and what those items are pertaining to what you are going to sell. As I said, if Bob's Fish and Tackle is selling worms and line and sells an ear protector, it doesn't mean that Bob is all of a sudden, a firearms dealer. No, Bob is still selling worms. That's what he does for a living. So with that, I ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Further discussion. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you look at Amendment L004, it's asking us, and I support the bill, Senate Bill 66, but this amendment strikes firearms, firearm accessories. And when I look at the definition of what accessories are, there's all kinds of accessories. When you go into a gun store, there's all kinds of accessories you can put on a clip. So are you saying strike that? You can customize different firearms through accessories. And they're saying strike that. I believe that that gun violence is a public health issue. This is just one approach to addressing the violence that we're seeing, not only in Colorado, but across our nation. And now we have this amendment. To want to put an additional criteria on a merchant that says We want to strike firearms and firearm accessories and firearms. Let's not confuse what we're trying to do here. I think this is just another way to confuse the elements and the merits of this bill, and I would say vote no on Amendment L004.
Is there further discussion on L004? Senator Van Winkle. I will remind folks that if you're hoping to speak to an amendment, that you be in the well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I don't think this amendment confuses the subject at all. In fact, I think it clarifies it dramatically, because firearm accessory is a very loosely determined phrase, loosely determined or defined phrase. It could apply to all kinds of things. And this amendment, which is brought before us, and I hope we are able to pass today, doesn't confuse it, it clarifies it, and also it doesn't exclude firearms. If you read the amendment, it's very clear that it's simply excluding firearm accessories, which again is a loosely determined or loosely defined term.
Senator Will.
Madam Chair, I stand in strong support of this amendment, and it's all been said about the accessories, but I've spent a lifetime and a career dealing with firearms and hunting and those type of things, and teaching kids about firearm safety, hunter responsibility, and how to handle a firearm safely. And when we talk about accessories, I think this makes sense. It's firearms and firearms accessories, and just substitute firearms, because the accessories can mean shooting sticks. It was talked about eye protection, ear protection, all of that. There's multiple accessories, including slings of all types and of slings for carrying a firearm, or especially your long guns. In the accessory business, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds that come with even each type firearm, especially if it's a long gun. And this amendment makes all kinds of sense, because, registering or all of these type of accessories will be a real burden to anyone in that business, I can tell you, because there's, along with the guns on display and everything in a gun store, there's just as many or more accessories associated with the use of that firearm. So I stand in strong support of this amendment.
Further discussion on L004? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L004 to Senate Bill 66. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes have it. L004 fails. Further discussion? Senator Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm up here to oppose Senate Bill 2466. We've got, I don't know, I've lost count, but I think there's about 11 bills that are going to have to do with gun safety this year. And in my last 5.5 years in the legislature, we have passed a lot of gun bills. And here we are again with this one, and it's to, track purchases made with your credit card. And while I understand in this particular bill, there won't be, you can rest assured there won't be investigation. But there's a companion bill that's coming, and it's working its way through the committees, and it's with the very same sponsors, and it's going to give the Colorado Bureau of Investigation the authority to investigate. And it's going to be able to investigate on many things, and they might even be able to do this one, because so while the sponsor and he's saying that this isn't going to happen, but if both of these bills pass, it is going to happen. Those of you that purchase your guns online or purchase them with your credit card, you're going to be tracked and you're going to be investigated. So I would urge a no vote, and that's all I have to say.
Further discussion to the bill? Senator Will.
Madam Chair, I also come up in opposition to this bill. I do see it as a registration, and all it's going to create is a list of citizens who are buying guns and ammo and accessories. And, you know, the firearm dealers already have a, you know, they're having a hard time finding credit card processing companies that will deal with the firearm industry. And they're already reporting sales, and especially the sales of handguns. That's already being reported. You know, that not the long guns and those weapons at this point, but they are. So I'm not sure what to expect, other than you're going to find out who's buying firearms. You're going to find out who's buying firearms. But there's no law against how many guns you can purchase. So I'm not sure what'll be gaining other than knowing that Mr. Customer is buying these guns or these firearms. You know, and I know a lot of people just say, because I'm hearing it from my constituents, that it's pretty much a general consensus that they'll stop using credit cards totally. They'll be buying guns with cash only. And there's also some services out there that I know some people have bought firearms, because some of these guns are very, very expensive. These firearms are expensive, and people use the credit card thing as kind of a financing option. They'll quit doing that, and if they don't have the cash to do it, there are companies out there that deal exclusively services that do finance firearms, and so they'll be going to that. I think the codes on the credit cards are originally intended to be a financial tool, and now it seems to be a tracking tool for the government. But I will say that all the top national card processing companies have stopped doing business with anyone selling firearms, and that's pretty much true. I think there's only 4 or maybe possibly 5 companies that will deal with firearm businesses now. And those companies, and that is their business. And for example, that is their business. If you go into that store like my son-in-law has, and you want to buy a new alternator for your old pickup, you can't use that card. You can use it for a gun, but you can't buy it for the other parts that he sells in that store. So I'm in strong opposition to this bill, and I don't think it's going to help with what's intended to help with. And I understand the passion and the, and I mirror all the comments I've heard from my colleagues on this as well about a good senator from Centennial, and I know what the attempt is being made here. And I'm sorry for that situation, that set of terrible circumstances, but I don't think this bill goes after it in the right way, and we're just putting an extra burden on law-abiding citizens and the constituents that I represent. Thank you.
Further discussion? Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I appreciate what the good senator from Mesa County was talking about other legislation that is being currently talked about. It's not like we have not done anything over the last 2, 3, 4 years to try and clamp down on these heinous individuals, warped, sick, whatever other adjectives that we want to use, worthless people that go out and commit these heinous crimes. Just to kind of briefly refresh our memories here, we already have a 3-day delivery delay for online purchases, which we passed just last year, House Bill 23-1219, which required a 3-day delay. In 2021, we expanded the firearms transfer background check. Also in 2021, we had House Bill 21-1299, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which the governor signed. The governor has signed all of these. House Bill 21256, the local regulation of firearms. The governor signed that one. 2023-168, the gun violence. Get my eyes fixed here. Gun violence victim access to the judicial system. 2023-169, increasing the minimum age to purchase firearms. Also in 2023-170, extreme risk protection, the ERPA, which we all know about. And Senate Bill 23-279, the Unserialized Firearms and Firearms Components Act. So we have taken numerous steps that have been, I mean, some of them have only been in effect not even a year or more. And I want to reach out, I want to be public about it to the good senator from Centennial. He says that we never talked to him. Well, Senator, I will talk to you any day. I consider your colleagues on your side of the aisle, I have good working relationships with most all of them. I enjoy speaking to them, and I want to turn over a new leaf to you, is that I am willing to speak to you any day, every day about your issues. I will gladly reach across the aisle and hear your concerns. I'll even invite you to lunch on me, by the way. But I want to get back to my opening statement that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I learned as a little boy that there were severe repercussions from my father or uncle or mother or whomever, that if I did something wrong, that there were severe repercussions. In my day, it was okay for the parents to spank the children. I won't get into the details. I think I got spanked maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, maybe 4. I can't remember. But I learned very quickly that there were severe repercussions. And in that, as I stated, is that I think part of what we've had a breakdown in our society is that people have learned that there are no repercussions for the acts that they commit, especially the act of multiple murders. And so with that, say since we did away with the death penalty, hopefully it'll come back. That's my opinion. Hopefully the death penalty will come back. It needs to come back because I think there are warped individuals out there that if they knew that there would be swift, definitive justice, that they would face the death penalty if they committed such a heinous crime of 2 or more. So with that in mind, members, Madam Chair, I would move Amendment L005.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L005 to Senate Bill 66?
L005, amend printed bill, page 5, after line
Senator
16,
Liston.
insert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, what L005 does, and I'll read it to you. It says, a person who purchases a firearm for a firearm merchant that is assigned a code who violates Section 183102, which is, I think, the death penalty, by using a firearm to cause the death of 2 or more individuals shall be punished by the death penalty. And this will become effective September 30th, 2026. That gives us time, hopefully, to reinstate the death penalty. So, remove the death, and I move Amendment L005 for those reasons. I thought I moved it already, but I'm sorry. Members, this goes back to my point that there needs to be consequences for these people that no matter whether it's man or woman, young or old, that go out and commit these heinous crimes, there needs to be swift, determinate justice. And that's what L005 is. That basically puts the person on notice that when you go out and if you purchase a firearm or ammunition and you use that in commission of a heinous crime, there will be the death penalty for you. No ifs, ands, or buts. So with that, I ask for a aye vote on L005.
Further discussion, Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm asking for a no vote on L005. If you look at the amendment, it says that if someone violates the code and they go out and commit murder or death of 2 or more individuals, they will be punished by death in the state of Colorado. We do no longer have the death penalty in the state of Colorado. So in order for us to adopt this amendment, we need to challenge a whole bunch of other laws. So first we have this good senator talking about how, if we have codes in business that, people might not want to do business. They may not want to have a firearm store. They might not want to sell guns. That's what the senator said. Now he's going to say in this amendment, I'm okay with the code, and if you violate, there's a penalty of death. So I'm kind of confused about if you're for the legislation or you're not, because this is saying you're for it, but if you do harm to someone like that causes death, then you get the death penalty. Members, this does not make any sense at all. I think we need to keep to the merits and the fundamental approach of the bill. It's clear. We're not asking for anyone to be punished by death because of a code. I vote no.
Further discussion, Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, the reason why I ask for this amendment is that within this merchant's code and so forth, with technology today, there could be, when a person goes in and buys that firearm, the handgun or the long rifle or whatever it may be, it will spit out on the receipt that something to this language, that if you use this particular firearm in commission of a multiple murder, 2 or more people, the death penalty will apply. Is that it's a shot across the bow. It's a warning that there will be severe repercussions. I realize that the death penalty is no longer in effect in Colorado. That's why I have it that this will take effect September 30th, 2026, because I know we don't have it. But there are people like me, and hopefully a lot of others, that would gladly vote on it again, maybe in 2024 or 2025 or some point in time, to bring back the death penalty, specifically for situations like this, where if there's a multiple murder, we should have the death penalty. Now, that's just me and probably a lot of people like me that would agree. So I'm keenly aware, but that's why I have a 2.5-year window that maybe we'll bring back the death penalty. So I bring this in all seriousness. I hope that the death penalty does come back for heinous crimes like what we're talking about. It should be here. So I respectfully ask for an aye vote on Amendment L005. Thank you.
Further discussion on L005. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the good senator from Aurora, and I couldn't agree with her more. This is way too broad of a amendment, and it doesn't really, as I see it, fit into what we're trying to do with commerce and banking and credit cards. Now we're going to want to put people to death because of them using a merchant code. And so I would ask that we vote this one down and vote no. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L005 to Senate Bill 66. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L005 fails. Further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the sponsor of Senate Bill 66, the good senator from Centennial, began this discussion with an impassioned plea for the passage of the bill, speaking to his unimaginable pain and grief at the loss of his son and others, at the hands of a person who purchased all sorts of firearms and firearm accessories and ammunition, not a doubt about it. And I listened to that very carefully because I wanted to understand the purpose of this bill and how this bill would operate. Now, in my own legislative career, I have strived to use the words of Lincoln, disenthrall myself from even my own sense of personal experience and emotion, which is difficult, almost impossible to do, but to look at a bill and say, where does this bill originate? How does it operate? What will it do? And what is it intended to do based on its face or what the sponsors say? And does it do other things that are beyond all of that? What kind of policy is it? And I admit I was a bit challenged when I saw the bill because I wondered about this assignment of a merchant category code to those who sell, well, the one who's defined as a firearms merchant. And we've had a lot of discussion about the things that make someone a firearms merchant. A question I had, and it maybe not ultimately relevant to my voting on the bill, but an interesting thing is there are out there people who are clearly and pretty much only firearms merchants. And then there are very large retailers who sell clothes and they sell dry goods and they sell housewares and they sell everything else and they sell sporting goods, and back over in the corner there's firearms with ammunition and so forth. There's a store in that's one store in my neighborhood. Another store in my neighborhood sells farming implements and all sorts of things. And then if you go over in the corner, there's firearms and there's fishing gear and all of that. And it caused me to wonder, well, would those big, call them big box stores or department stores, will they get a single merchant category code so that when I go and buy my groceries there, it'll just show that Bob, seems to be a popular name today, Bob bought groceries and he bought a shirt and he bought some other stuff and And so Bob never bought a firearm or any ammunition there, but Bob did that trade there. I'm assuming that in a regulatory way, and given the technology of the day, probably what happens in those places, it ought to happen, is that there ought to be a separate merchant category code for the firearms counter. Lord only knows you can't get into the cosmetics section without paying at a separate register, because apparently the cosmetics are a hot item for theft, so you have to do that. So I think that's probably how this works, but I asked myself then, if you assign a merchant category code to anyone who deals in firearms, and you get down to this, if I go to that store and I purchase stuff there, whether it be a Glock or 9mm ammunition or a magazine or the little parts for a magazine or things that now have to have serial numbers put on them, a receiver, all those things, then so what? So what? So you've got this thing. Well, there's an assertion that this is not for a registry, and yet, if you create a merchant category code and you do all of that, what's the use? What's the purpose? Well, there must be some. And as I reflect back on the sponsors, again, very an understandably impassioned plea for this bill, it seemed that it was to be able to track these transactions. Now, this calls to mind, and Madam Chair, I'm not going to go down the road of discussing other legislation, but by analogy, I do need or do want to discuss Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is kind of below the radar in Congress, which got passed because we wanted to fight terrorism, and there were people who objected because they wanted protections of their privacy, and I don't know how that debate will turn out, but it's not unlike what this bill is about. If you disenthrall yourself from, I'm really caught up in the Second Amendment, or we have to remove these firearms from the hands of people who may misuse them and create egregious crimes. First of all, what this merchant category code means is there's going to be, I don't know, let's not call it a register. There's going to be a list. There's going to be a record. Let's call it a record. And the record's going to be in the hands of someone. The someone is going to be a financial institution of some sort, credit card company associated with a bank, probably regulated by the Consumer Protection Financial Board, or Bureau, I think that is, CFPB. And the interesting thing about that as it is now is, without going into all the details, those transactions are protected by privacy statutes and regulations. So, if we're trying to find out who did all of these, who bought several firearms and hundreds and hundreds of rounds of ammunition and potential things for explosives and I guess the the stars, those things that are kind of like the small version of anti-tank barricades that put out your tires. I'm not sure why that would be a firearm or a firearm accessory, but if you purchased all those with a credit card, then some would say, well, you can't get that without a warrant. That credit card company can't share it. So no danger here, nothing to look at, move along. Move along. So on the one hand, if the goal is to find out who purchases these kinds of things, current law and regulation prevents law enforcement and those who would, prevents them from doing that. The record is there, they don't have access to it. Maybe I don't have anything to worry about. But the record is there. The sponsor in the discussion of the reasons for the bill and in support of a yes vote on the bill, talked about all of the things that were subsequently discovered about the perpetrator, and they were discovered without an MCC. Law enforcement could find them because there's, whether you bought it from someone who had an MCC or not, the databases out there are phenomenal, scary. They can almost predict what you had for breakfast this morning, or didn't, in my case. So I look at the bill and I say, well, what's the point? We give everybody a code, but that's not public, it's private information under current law. But then I'm a person who worries a lot about the balance between security and safety with privacy. Fourth Amendment concerns. And I think on something like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which was passed in the wake of 9/11, and there was a rush to do that. And some people, they weren't terribly popular at the time, some people, members of Congress at the time, said, whoa, 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 whoa. I know that the World Trade Center came down and the airplane crashed into the Pentagon, and this is terrible and this is grievous and people lost lives and so forth. But in our haste, are we not going to sacrifice some privacy, and are we not creating a whole record? Now, what Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act does is allow them to listen in to conversations that you might have with someone overseas, and if it's the overseas person, they're not protected by the Fourth Amendment. But your conversation and who you talked with is there. And what's happened with that over the years is, and it has relevance here, even though there are privacy protections, they have been violated and they have been compromised. So I look at this and I say, well, in the first instance today, that list will be made. the list will be made under the federal statutes and Code of Federal Regulations. Law enforcement won't have access to it without a warrant, and that would need probable cause of someone who intends to commit a crime or has committed a crime. So they already know, and we already understand that once they have probable cause, there are all sorts of things. There's the federal firearms license, there's the background check documentation, there's all of that. But I'll tell you this about law enforcement, and I have, as you all know, the deepest respect for law enforcement and what they do. And they often come to me and they say, Representative, Senator, we want authorization to do this thing. We want authorization to get cell phone records without a warrant, because if someone's missing or they're about to lose their life, we need to know immediately. And I say, don't you have to have a warrant for that? And they say, yeah, we have to have a warrant for that. We'd like to have a statute that says we don't, that under certain exigent circumstances we can do that. And I've always been very uncomfortable with those things, and it's been very difficult for me to strike a balance. And if you say, well, it's not hard for me, well, then I would contend that you don't think very hard about this really difficult thing that we have to do here in America, here in Colorado, as legislators, which is to balance safety and security against privacy. Because once a record exists, I can guarantee you, based upon historic evidence and personal experience, once a record exists, someplace, sometime, somehow, it will be compromised. Now, some will say, well, no, that won't happen. And I'll say, well, I can prove to you that there's probably never a case of the list being made by government somewhere, someplace that has not been misused. Like your IRS records are supposed to be totally confidential, but someone, this is just kind of an interesting side note, your IRS records are supposed to be absolutely confidential, but someone got convicted and sentenced to, I think, 5 years for compromising Donald J. Trump's IRS records. An interesting twist on that thing. But that's an example where the federal rules and regulations and statutes, even a criminal statute, said every citizen, no matter how popular or unpopular they might be, whether they are of high office or of no office at all, their tax records are supposed to be sacrosanct, not releasable without a warrant. And yet someone did it. It was the same thing with FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. They were supposed to be sacrosanct. Those records were supposed to be absolutely private and not releasable without a warrant, and yet there were people of very high-level government officials who compromised those things. And what this bill does is operate to facilitate and create a record of purchases, and some of those are already happening in one way. They're already happening anyway by cash register codes and everything else, but this makes it even more discreet, if you will, in the sense of you can now segregate those records pretty quickly, pretty easily, and say, who all bought in El Paso County or Denver County or Boulder County, who all bought firearms or firearm accessories? Is there a database out there that can tell me that? Yes, it's held by this government organization? Well, I'd really like to know, I'd just like to know. Senator Gardner goes down and talks about the Second Amendment a lot and all. I wonder how many firearms he's purchased. Or a law enforcement member says, I really need to know because someone is behaving erratically, at least I think they're behaving erratically, and I can't get a warrant. I don't have probable cause. I just think they're dangerous. Members, I'm not going to pretend to tell you whether you should vote yes or no. I think minds are probably already made up. I think they were probably made up an hour and a half ago, maybe days ago. So why am I down here talking into the lunch hour? Well, it's not to take your time. It's to ask you to consider for Senate Bill 66 and every other bill that we have of a similar nature that creates a record that says we're going to have a special code for a special product, whether it's fertilizer, manure, gasoline-powered lawn equipment, cigarettes, or firearms. Are we creating a record? Will that record be misused? Will it be misused against an innocent citizen? Will it be misused against a citizen for a purpose different than the one we had? That's what's happened over and over again with government databases. If there is a database, once the record is made, once the list is there, it can be accessed. You can pass criminal statutes and say, it's crime if you misuse that. You'll lose your job. You'll go to jail for 5 years. And yet, I can practically guarantee, enough so that I, not a gambling man, would put money on it because I don't think it's much of a gamble. It's a surer deal in the stock market for sure. That list, that record, that document with the list of everyone who purchased firearms and firearms accessories and ammunition will, at some point, be misused. Might be misused in a moment of great concern about national security. The Constitution is violated in those moments, frankly. You say, oh, no, no, no. Yes, yes, yes. I just finished reading another account of the internment of Japanese Americans in World War II in violation of the Fourth Amendment, because there was concern and hysteria, and everybody acknowledges that in many, many ways not justified, and yet it was there. So, weigh carefully. We are creating a system, and it will be a system of records. It will be a system of information. It will have utility. If accessed, it will tell those who access it about what your buying habits are with respect to firearms and ammunition and all of those things. That's the choice you're making. You may say, firearms are bad and nobody should have them, and I don't mind making that compromise. I don't mind creating that list, even if I know it's going to be abused. Or you may say, bad things are done with firearms, and those who misuse them should be punished and punished severely, and we should prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, but we should not compromise the privacy of law-abiding citizens by creating a database and a record that can be misused. And they are misused in instance after instance. Thank you for listening, colleagues. I urge you to consider those pros and cons when you vote on this bill.
Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I certainly appreciate my colleague from El Paso County's arguments when it comes to the potential misuse of this data. And I hope, Senator, that you'll stay close because I may be offering an amendment shortly to address that very subject. But first, members, let us go back a step and talk about a bit how we got here to the merchant category codes and how the state of Colorado will be requiring that of its citizens and its merchants. Where they come from, or where this came from, is, of course, these are used by payment processors like Visa and MasterCard and other financial services companies. It was amended in today that credit unions also will be included in this bill. It allows those banks to, quote, identify, monitor, and collect data on certain types of transactions. Now, before the ISO decision that was referenced several times today, firearm retailers fell under the MCC for sporting goods stores or perhaps even just simple retailers. Now, the ISO, where they are and who they are, is they are a Geneva, Switzerland-based non-governmental organization that consists of a network of standards bodies from around the globe to create consensus on various countries and industries in things just like this. Now, who they are is actually run by an oversight body that governs the entire thing, and it's run by essentially 6 men. The president is from the Republic of Korea. The vice president is from Germany. Another vice president from Spain. Another vice president from Argentina. And the secretary general, who actually, I believe, runs essentially the day-to-day, is from the country of Chile. And his expertise is actually in gender equality and is an international gender champion. Now that is where this MCC code is coming from, and the ISO adopted the new firearm retailer MCC on the behest of, in fact, the Amalgamated Bank over the injections, and this is very important, it was objected to by industry stakeholders, specifically Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Now, the Amalgamated Bank is actually a left-wing political project declaring on their website that they are proud to support candidates, political parties, political action committees, and political organizations as they seek to, quote, build power for progressive change. Now, I referenced that it was objected to by industry stakeholders, and that is true, citing severe opposition to the adoption of the firearm retailer MCC. On March 9th, American Express, MasterCard, and Visa announced jointly that they had paused the implementation of the new code, specifically as Reuters reported that state legislation to restrict the use of firearm retailer MCC prompted the companies to halt implementation. Now, these are bills. In March, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice signed a House bill. Idaho Governor Brad Little signed a House bill. Mississippi Governor signed a House bill. North Dakota signed House bill. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed Senate Bill 214. Montana Governor signed Senate Bill 359. In Texas, Greg Abbott signed a House bill there, outline the complete opposite of the bill that is before us today. Now, they were driven largely, for many reasons, but one is that a joint letter authored by Visa and joined by MasterCard and American Express was sent to those state legislatures. And in it, it says, this is from Visa, "We do not believe private companies should serve as moral arbiters. Asking private companies to decide what legal products or services can or cannot be bought and from what store sets a dangerous precedent. Further, It would be an invasion of our customers' privacy for banks and payment networks to know each of our most personal purchasing habits. Visa, joined by the others, is firmly against this. As we do not know when ISO created a new merchant code, Visa adopts the standards that apply to our industry. As we do when a new merchant code is created, Visa adopts standards that apply to our industry. For us, that means working with our financial institution clients to enable them to implement this new MCC when ISO makes it available. A fundamental principle by Visa, MasterCard, and American Express is protecting all legal commerce through our network and around the world and upholding the privacy of cardholders who choose to use our services. That has always been our commitment and will not change with the ISO's decision. Now, later in 2022, those three largest payment networks have announced that they will go ahead with the MCC for firearm retailers for states that choose to do so. So far as California, and soon to be, it appears, Colorado. In the letter, and it came after 28 members of Congress sent a public letter to the networks pressuring them to adopt the code. In that letter, the payment networks, the federal lawmakers stated that the new merchant code, category code for firearms would be, quote, a first step towards facilitating the collection of valuable financial data that could help law enforcement, expressing a clear governmental expectation that networks will utilize the new merchant category code to conduct mass surveillance of constitutionally protected firearms, firearm accessories or components, and the ammunition purchases in cooperation with law enforcement. The new merchant category code will allow banks and others involved in the credit processing to identify and separately track lawful payment purchases at firearm retailers, paving the way for both unprecedented surveillance of Second Amendment activity and unprecedented information sharing between the financial institutions and government. This potential for cooperation, surveillance of tracking lawful firearms and firearm accessories and components and ammunition purchases will have a significant chilling effect on the citizens wishing to exercise their both federal and state constitutionally protected rights to keep and bear arms. While the federal law requires some financial institutions to report transactions that are highly indicative of, say, money laundering or other unlawful activities, there is no federal law authorizing financial institutions to surveil and track lawful activities by customers in cooperation with law enforcement. In fact, both the Federal Right to Privacy Act and Colorado's laws prohibit financial institutions from disclosing customer financial records except in very limited circumstances. Now, going back to the concern by my good colleague from Colorado Springs, who very eloquently, and I won't repeat everything he said, but very eloquently talked about how once a database is created, that database is open and will eventually be shared somehow and potentially in a nefarious manner. I will offer Amendment L003.
There's an amendment at the desk. Mr. Hubler, will you please read L003?
L003, amendment printed bill.
Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L003.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what this will do, following upon the very real-world concerns that have been raised today regarding the database and data gathering, is it will allow customers to bring civil damages, injunctive relief, or both against any financial institution or government entity that causes a customer's protected financial information to be disclosed in violation of their constantly protected right to privacy or any harmful manner. And I'll read the amendment so it's extremely clear. A person may bring civil action against a financial institution or a government entity that causes the customer's financial information to be disclosed in violation of the person's constantly protected right of privacy or any harmful manner resulting from the misuse of information obtained pursuant to this Part 2. the court may award prevailing plaintiff damages, injunctive relief, or both damages and injunctive relief. So what this will do is it will give the citizens of Colorado, if harmed in a nefarious manner, a way to bring civil action to help find cure and help find relief for the damages that may result from the misuse of data. Thank you, Madam Chair. I urge yes vote.
Senator Sullivan, discussion on L003.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a no vote on this. This is redundant. This is already the law. I don't know if any of you use credit cards. Apparently, you're all going cash-based from this day forward, but I'm still using my credit card. And Capital One sends this out every single year with your bills and tells you. And the reasons are they share your personal information. And they do that for everyday business purchases, such as to process your transactions, maintain your accounts, respond to court orders and legal investigations, and report to credit bureaus. Do they share this? Yes, it says. Can you limit this sharing? No. No, you can't. It's already the law. So they've already set themselves up that this type of action will take care of. This is redundant. I ask for a no vote.
Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I rise in support of Amendment L03 to Senate Bill 66. The amendment offers for redress, essentially, for an individual whose rights have been violated by the loss of information against not only financial institutions, which is in some ways, not conclusively or completely, but in some ways the law of the land, but also against any government entity that causes the customer's financial information to be disclosed in violation of the person's constitutionally protected rights. So it is necessary, this amendment, in order to expand against the potential entities that may allow for or have let happen the theft or advancing of private information that should not have been advanced. Why is this so important? You ask Lundin. Senator Lundin, you say, why is this so important?
Why is this so important?
This is so important because we're already potentially intruding upon constitutional rights with the bill to start with. And then on top of that, you gather information into a database that inevitably will be violated, government or private, and the protection of that person of those rights that they have to seek the quiet enjoyment of their life and the protection of their financial information from private and government intrusion is critically important. So I say instead of allowing for a potential second insult and injury, adopt Amendment L03 and prevent that second insult and injury from happening, or quite frankly, if it does happen, for some form of injunctive relief as the amendment allows for, and damages as well, to make that individual whole, not in the loss of their potentially their constitutional right as protected under the Second Amendment, but in the loss of and damages they may suffer from financial information being taken or released into the wild. Madam Chair, thank you very much. Colleagues, I urge your support of Amendment L03.
Further discussion. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I find it hard to understand the opposition to this amendment. It's not redundant. It creates a cause of action in the very accessible state court and does so to ensure the privacy of those who make purchases of firearms, which is already guaranteed under the law. And I think the opposition sort of raises the question, what are you trying to do with this bill? Are you trying to invade the privacy of firearms purchasers, legitimate, legal firearms purchasers? The only thing I think I, as a simple country lawyer, find wrong with this is it says the court may award a prevailing plaintiff damages, injunctive relief, or both damages and injunctive relief. And, you know, I would add an attorney's fees and cost and treble the damages, but not being of that particular discipline of my profession, I think this is a great amendment and urge an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to address the senator from Highlands Ranch's argument about Visa and MasterCard pulling their actions to do this on their own. They really pulled their actions to do this after a blowback, as reported by the Associated Press, by gun rights advocates.
Senator, I'm sorry, excuse me, Senator Kolker, is this 2L003?
It is.
Thank you. Please proceed.
And so, you know, for a financial institution to pull back this, it was really an aspect in relation to pressure from the gun violence lobby, and so, or gun, I call it gun violence, the gun lobby. And because of that, I just want to make sure that this amendment is not passed, because we're already doing this. They acknowledge it, and they're pulling back because of the laws that we're passing. So I'm a no on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of L003. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The noes have it. L003 fails. Seeing Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before we get away from this debate, I do want to point out that it was said that one retailer in particular, that's a very common retailer across the state of Colorado, is a top place for selling illegal guns. And I mean, I don't work for the retailer, but it did seem as if it was a very unnecessary statement made. This retailer, I've actually purchased a firearm from this retailer, and I can assure you that I was put through a very vigorous, both Colorado Bureau of Investigation background check and the federal NICS system background check for the firearm purchase, and it was a completely legal firearm that was purchased. I don't think we need to be making things up about common retailers in the state of Colorado who are selling illegal guns to people that should not obtain them. So thank you, Madam Chair. I urge a no vote on this bill for many of the reasons already articulated. I do believe, especially after the failure of the last amendment, that it is a tremendous invasion of people's privacy, and there will be little recourse for the people of Colorado. In fact, what I can foresee happening probably is many retailers just installing an ATM machine or something of the sort and requiring cash for purchases to avoid the very real world headache that will come from the tracking of both the state and federal governments and from the financial institutions. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 066. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. SB 066 passes. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 24-013?
Senate Bill 103 by Senators Pelton B. and Janal and Representative McLaughlin concerning technical changes to Colorado Department of Labor and Employment statutes.
Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 24-103.
To the bill, Senator Janal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill comes out of the Statutory Review Committee, and it's a straightforward bill. It makes changes to the language that no longer applies and should not apply to this bill. And it makes changes to different sections by removing unnecessary language It also makes changes and clarifications on the proper use of grant funds by qualified organizations, and it clarifies what's meant by the word approval. And we ask for your yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 24-103. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those in opposition say no. By a hair, y'all. That motion passes, and we are going to rise and report.
Appointments.
Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please mark Senator Smallwood as excused? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our committee met and considered two bills. Mr. Hubler, will you please read the report?
February 2024, Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 66 as amended and Senate Bill 103 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. SCR 1 laid over until February 22nd, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Cow Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 66?
S001, Senator Van Winkle moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to show
Senator
the
Van
following.
Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Cow Amendment S001.
To the amendment.
And this is amendment, it's actually what we just talked about. However, I did disagree with the chair at the time, and was hoping this amendment could pass. What this amendment does, to be very clear so everyone knows exactly what they're voting on, is it allows a customer to bring civil actions, or it allows a person to bring civil actions for damages, injunctive relief, or both against any financial institution or government entity that causes the person's protected financial information to be disclosed in violation of their constitutionally protected right to privacy or in a manner that harms them personally. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? The Senate will stand in a senatorial 5. Members, we are back. The motion before the body is the adoption of S001, which is Cow Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 66. Are there any no votes? Senators Mullica, Roberts, Hanson, Exum, Coleman, Sullivan, Gonzalez, Mr. Majority Leader, Fields, Winter, Kolker, Danielson, Marchman, Zenzinger, Janal, Bridges, Henriksen, Jaquez Lewis, Buckner, Michelson Janae, Cutter. Please add the president. With a vote of With a vote of 12 ayes, 22 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the motion fails. The motion before the body is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Lundin, okay. These are no votes on the Committee of the Whole report. If you were a no, please raise your hand again. We're going to start over. Senators Van Winkle, Will, Baisley, Rich, Lundin, Kirkmeyer, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R. With a vote of 25 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 66 is amended. Senate Bill 103 passed on second reading in order to engross and place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate concurrent resolution 1 laid over until 2/22 and retained in its place on the calendar. Consideration of governor's appointments. Will the clerk please read the appointments to the Colorado Energy Research Authority?
Effective July 2nd, 2023, for terms expiring July 1, 2027, William Tour of Boulder, Colorado, reappointed. Mark Sarangelo of Lafayette, Colorado, reappointed.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the appointment of William Tour and Mark Sarangelo to the Colorado Energy Research Authority.
Is there any discussion? See none. The motion is the confirmation of the governor's appointment to the Colorado Energy Research Authority. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Rich, Baisley, Will, Liston, Pelton B, Pelton R, Simpson. With a vote of 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 161 by Senators Pelton R. and Marchman and Representatives Lukens and Soper, concerning parks and wildlife products, and in connection therewith, modifying low-income, senior, and disabled veteran eligibility requirements for certain licenses, authorizing the Parks and Wildlife Commission to establish by rule a harvest permit surcharge, and establishing procedures for hearings conducted by the Commission for the denial, suspension, or revocation of a river outfitter license.
Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Senate Bill 162 by Senators Marchman and Winter and Representatives Bacon and Herod, concerning best practices for responding to discriminatory conduct in schools and in connection therewith, developing training consistent with the best practices.
Education.
House Bill 1033 by Representatives Snyder and Velasco and Senators Cutter and Jaquez Lewis, concerning the needs of an individual with an animal during an emergency, and in connection therewith, strongly encouraging that emergency management plans address the needs of an individual with an animal during an emergency, and that local governments make certain information publicly available relating to an individual with an animal during an emergency.
Local Government and Housing.
House Bill 1085 by Representatives Frizzell and Amable, Senators Gardner and Janal, concerning establishing a limitation of actions against an individual performing a real estate appraisal practice.
Judiciary.
House Bill 1155 by Representative Velasco and Senator Cutter, concerning modifications to the statutes that guide the management of certain public safety emergencies.
Agriculture and Natural Resources. Message from the governor.
June 2nd, 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the powers conferred upon me by the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado, I have the honor to designate, appoint, reappoint, and submit to your consideration the following member of the Colorado Board of Veterans Affairs, effective July 1, 2023, for terms expiring June 30, 2027. Lacey Galanka of Castle Rock, Colorado, an unaffiliated and a veteran who has been honorably released or separated from the armed forces of the United States, reappointed. Frederick Korb III of Parker, Colorado, a Republican and veteran who has been honorably released or separated from the armed forces of the United States, appointed. June 9, 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
June 9, 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the powers conferred upon me by the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado, I have the honor to designate, appoint, reappoint, and submit to your consideration the following members of the Board of Real Estate Appraisers, effective July 2nd, 2023, for a term expiring July 1, 2026. Daisy Glassburn of Parker, Colorado, to serve as real estate appraiser appointed. Robert Stilo Jr., Fort Collins, Colorado, to serve as real estate appraiser appointed. Brent Goff of Palisade, Colorado, to serve as a county assessor appointed.
Business, Labor, and Technology. Members, before we get to announcements, there's a very special individual out there watching us. A little 9-year-old boy named Ezra. And he happens to be Tammy, our calendar clerk's grandson. And so we're going to sing him happy birthday. I'm not sure why a 9-year-old is watching the Colorado Channel during the school day. So let's sing happy birthday to Ezra on his 9th birthday.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ezra. Happy birthday to you.
May the dear Lord bless you, shower graces on you. May the dear Lord bless you, Ezra. May the dear Lord bless you.
Yay, Ezra.
Happy birthday, Ezra. Announcements. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Having consulted with the Majority Leader, the President, and an extensive conversation with myself, I will be absent tomorrow morning, and I will miss you. I would invite any of you who want to join in the honoring of the life and accomplishments and faith of Senator Keith King at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning at the Radiant Church in Colorado Springs, 4020 Maysland Road. There will be a memorial service on behalf of Senator King. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader will be marked as excused tomorrow. Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. After conferring with the Majority Leader and Minority Leader, I request to be excused this Friday, February the 23rd.
Senator Simpson will be excused on Friday, February 23rd. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Local Government Housing will be meeting in room 352 at our regular time at 2 o'clock. We have two bills to hear, 1091 and 1016. See you there.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senate Finance will be meeting in the Old Supreme Court today at 2 o'clock.
Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, if you would pay attention, please. I represent the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. It's been a tough week for the campus, and I stand here to offer my sincere condolences to the families of Celie Rain Montgomery and Samuel Knopp, who were heartlessly murdered in a dorm at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs last Friday morning. Mr. Knopp and Miss Montgomery were at the start of their lives with bright futures ahead of them. Colleagues, I don't need to tell you how precious life is, But when a tragedy such as this occurs, especially so close to home, which is in my district, I feel compelled to come down here and remind us all to never take our friends and our family for granted. To the students and faculty and staff at UCCS, I want you to know that myself and my good Senate colleagues share your grief. I want to commend the Colorado Springs Police Department for identifying and arresting the suspect without incident. On behalf of the families of those who were lost, we all pray and share that there will be swift justice that is delivered. And on behalf of those who were lost, Mr. President, I ask that the Senate observe a moment of silence.
The Senate will observe a moment of silence and the chimes will ring.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Thank you very much.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate recess until 1:30 p.m. today. Colleagues, you do not need to return. We just have to read some things over the desk.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 1:30 p.m. today.